All right, here we are, gang. Hope you all are well and blessed. Um, Today is July the 27th. The only reason why I'm not present with you on today is I had to minister somewhere else. That's the only thing that would keep me from being with you in live and living color. But hopefully, this is just as good as if I were there. Hopefully, all of the sound and the screen and slides are crystal clear in order that you all may have optimal understanding. So each and every week builds upon the previous week. Every week is specifically designed to give you a new set of information based upon where you are. The long of the short is this lesson that I'm going to teach you today is something that you were not ready for on last week. The message you got last week is something that you were not ready for 2 weeks ago, so on and so forth. So you all of the mindset to be where you need to be to receive this. The name of this lesson is Insulin, the Enemy of Weight Loss. Okay, so let's get started and hopefully you enjoy today's message. Okay. All right. All right, gang. Now, if you were to go to the web or do any type of research on any given level, you would find the research is saying, is there a cure for diabetes? And most times you'll hear people say that there is not a cure for diabetes. It says at this time there's no known cure for diabetes type 1 or type 2. We're funding pioneering life-changing research into the care. And what I want you to understand is the reason why you hear various medical industries or websites or doctors say that there's no cure for diabetes is because what they mean is there's no medication, no shot, no treatment that they can give a patient whereby the patient can be cured of it. That's what they mean. But is there a cure for diabetes, especially type 2, meaning that it was acquired, which is what most people are dealing with? There is a cure for it. And that cure revolves around health, wellness, and understanding food and nutrition. So please understand that. People are reversing their diabetes. As a matter of fact, this particular process, there have been countless amounts of individuals. I pray one day that I'm able to get the funding that I need and want in order to focus on diabetics, because if I were to have the dollars behind me to do what I need to do for diabetics, diabetes would be eliminated virtually within 3 to 6 months with ease. I've seen it day in and day out. So that's the reason, and that's the interpretation of that. Okay. Now, I want you to understand what happens when a person has diabetes or is pre-diabetic. I want you to understand what happens when you eat your food. You chew it, goes down the esophagus into the stomach. When the food gets into the stomach, insulin is released whenever the body notices a certain type of food, and we'll get into this. Okay, what insulin does is created by a gland called the pancreas. Okay, sits right on top of the stomach. Insulin is produced, released, and the job of insulin is to basically take the glucose, which is sugar, from the food that you're eating, take that sugar and deposit it into your cells. This is the reason why untreated diabetics can lead to death or diabetic coma, so on and so forth, because what causes us not to live, or what causes us and keeps us living, is our cells are basically fueled by glucose. And what allows the glucose here to get into the cells is the insulin. So when the body is not producing insulin, it's unable to basically fuel itself. Think about a car putting gas in the tank, but the fuel cannot get to the fuel lines to then get to inject itself within the cylinders. Same concept. So that's what happens. The pancreas is what releases the insulin. The insulin attaches itself to the glucose, the sugar molecules, energy molecules, taking those sugar molecules into the cells in order that you can run, jump, talk, speak, daily activities, etc. Okay? And why do doctors say there is no cure? Doctors say there's no cure back to the original statement that I gave you at the inception of this message. They say there's no cure, meaning there's no medical treatment whereby a pill, a shot, or a treatment can be administered, whereby once it is administered, diabetes is eliminated. But diabetes, especially type 2, can be cured, eliminated, and even individuals who have type 1, it can be greatly improved if you understand what being a diabetic means. When a person is a diabetic or a pre-diabetic, it's very, very similar to having a sprained ankle. Let me give you an understanding of that. If you were to sprain your ankle and you go to the doctor or the hospital, there's nothing they can do to cure that sprained ankle. The only thing that they tell you to help your condition is to stay off of the ankle. Don't run, don't jump, use a cane, use crutches. Stop putting pressure on the ankle, because if you continue to jump, run, hop, skip, doing the things that you were doing, the ankle will never heal. When you have diabetes, basically what it is, or pre-diabetic, your pancreas are strained. That's basically what has happened. And just like that sprained ankle, the only way to heal it is, guess what? You have to rest it. You can't put the pressure on the pancreas to constantly release the insulin, constantly working, constantly overproducing insulin. You have to allow the pancreas to take a break, to take a breather. And if you do that effectively over an extended amount of time, the body, and God has made our bodies to where we will heal and you can reverse your diabetes. Okay. Next question is, how does insulin lead to weight gain? The way insulin leads to weight gain, let's go back to our original, diagram. This is how insulin leads to weight gain, being that you understand what happens when you ingest food, insulin is released, glucose is taken by the insulin to the cells. The reason why insulin leads to weight gain is when the body is releasing insulin based upon what you're eating, and unused glucose molecules, basically if you're eating and your body doesn't need the glucose, then what the insulin is going to do, instead of putting it into your cells, is going to store it as fat. Okay. So whenever you're eating things that is causing the release of insulin, your body is in a fat storage type of mode, anabolic. Okay. That's the reason why. Okay. And let's continue. We're going to bring it all together very, very soon. Okay. Now, the question is now that you understand that diabetes is basically a person, type 2, that has a sprained pancreas and they can heal themselves. You understand what insulin is. You understand what it does. You understand what happens and why insulin leads to weight gain. Now let's talk about what's the natural cure for diabetes. Now, check this out. The same way we cure diabetes is the same way we reverse diabetes, is the same way we prevent ourselves from becoming diabetes, as well as it is the same way to keep our weight in check. It is all connected. So again, the same approach naturally to cure yourself from diabetes, prevent yourself from becoming diabetic, and keeping your weight in check or losing weight is all the same plan and procedure. And I want you to write these down. Now, what you can do is you can take your phones out, take pictures of these slides, or you can write them down. I'll be sure to give you an indication on what you need to write down. Okay. Number one, the first thing we need to do, avoid overeating. This is key. When you overeat, you spike your insulin. Okay? You cause massive amounts of insulin to be released by the pancreas, and then there are unused glucose molecules in the body. And basically the body's having to work hard to produce enough insulin to take the sugar out of the food that you've eaten, put it into your cells, and if you're not using it, it's going to store it as fat. So the reason why we only are eating 400 calories per meal, we are eating enough food that will fuel our daily activity from one meal to the next meal, which will be in 3 hours. So you wake up at 8, you eat at 9. You're eating 400 calories. It's going to last you to 12. You eat another 400 calories at 12. That'll last you to 3. Another 400 calories at 3 lasts you to 6, so on and so forth. So the first way we avoid diabetes, reverse diabetes, prevent diabetes, and keep our weight in check is to avoid overeating. Just what you all are doing now. Okay? Number 2, the second way that we avoid diabetes, reverse diabetes, keep our weight in check is by being active on a daily basis. Now, let's go back to our diagram. Okay? If you are eating whatever, when you eat food, the body's looking for the glucose, insulin is produced. And what happens is if you're eating food and there are unused glucose molecules in your body, when you're active, your body's going to require these molecules to fuel your workouts. So what happens is when you're exercising and your body is using up the unused glucose, guess what happens? There's no space, or there's nothing for the body to store as fat. You see? See, not only are we not overeating, but we're active. This is why doctors will tell you that exercising helps to improve diabetes, because what it does is it takes the taxing off of the body from having to produce insulin, and it's causing the body to use up glucose in order that it's not stored as fat. Okay? So number 1, we don't overeat. Number 2, we're active every single day. Okay? And if not daily, at least 4 to 5 times per week. Okay? When you're active, running, jogging, cycling, swimming, the body is using the glucose and blood for energy. By doing this alongside of eating small meals, you see, the body will not have, look at this, extra glucose, which causes high blood sugar. Okay? Number 3, not eating foods that spike insulin. Now, this is very, very important. I want you all to be certain you take a picture of this. Now, in order to understand this, we must have an awareness of the glycemic index, and I'm going to show you what this means. Take a look at this. Take a picture of it with your phones so you can be certain that you study it. Now, I want you to look at these 2 graphs. You see one graph that is indicative of this red line. The other one's indicative of this green line. Now, this red graph is an example of a spiked blood sugar. This right here is the enemy of a diabetic. It's the enemy of a person who's trying to reverse diabetes, and it's the enemy of a person who's trying to keep their weight in check. This is the simulation. If you had to put an experience on paper, this is what happens when you go to your mother's house or your grandmother's house for Thanksgiving and you eat that sweet potato souffle, you eat the cranberry sauce, the dressing, the ham, the cake, and then you eat it and it's so good when you're eating it, and then you sit down, you get real sleepy, and then you crash. That's what this is happening. Massive amounts of insulin are being reduced. You get up here and then you get sleepy because you're crashing, you see. You never want to crash. You want steady energy levels. That's this green level, not this. This is what you want. Now, the key and the reason why I'm showing you this is because there are different foods that spike insulin, and there are certain foods that do not cause an insulin spike. Diabetics, people trying to reverse diabetes, and people who are trying to keep their weight in check never need to eat things that spike your insulin, you see. And in order to understand this, we have to talk about high glycemic foods, GI, versus low GI foods. Now, look at the things, or some of the foods that spike insulin. Chips, biscuits, cakes, ice cream, dates, jasmine rice, potatoes, processed food, watermelon, white bread. Persons who are diabetic, pre-diabetic, or trying to watch their weight should never consume any of these things at any time, because all it does is, watch this, spike your insulin. You don't need that. You need things that keep your energy levels balanced. Not that we're eating basmati rice, but I'm giving you examples: vegetables, lentils, pasta, whole grain breads, and oats. Although many of these items we're still not eating, and you'll understand it why. I'm just giving you an example of what foods spike insulin versus the foods that do not. So really, the person who's the diabetic, the person who's trying to avoid diabetes, the person who's trying to keep their weight in check must understand high glycemic foods, low glycemic foods, and at all cost, always avoid high glycemic foods. Whether you're diabetic, whether you're pre-diabetic, or whether you're trying to keep your waist in check and your weight in check. You see, because there are a lot of people saying, well, I don't eat that much. But if you're eating this and it's still not much, you're constantly spiking your insulin. That's why you can't lose weight. Now, let's further study the glycemic index. Low glycemic foods, medium and high, they all have a numeric value. Foods that are 55 and under, be certain you take a picture of this. Get your phones and take a picture of this. Foods that are medium glycemic, 56 to 69. Foods that are high glycemic index, 70 or above. People who are diabetics should never be consuming foods that are high glycemic index. People who are trying to avoid diabetes should either be eating low glycemic foods and sometimes medium glycemic foods, but mostly here. If you're a diabetic, if you're pre-diabetic, you never need to be eating foods that are medium or even high GI foods. Because what you're doing is, the higher the number, the more you're taxing those pancreas. And remember, when we're trying to heal ourselves, we have to give the pancreas a break. So the higher the number, the more aggressive that food is on the pancreas. Am I making sense? The more you're straining the pancreas to have to produce insulin. When you're eating low glycemic foods, it's almost like having a car that's on the expressway in 7th gear on cruise control. You're barely moving. You're barely exerting effort. You see. Now let's look at some foods that are high glycemic foods, high GI. Look at this. Muesli, whole wheat bread, baked potatoes, taco shells, white bread, white bagel, oatmeal. You see, this is why we avoid oatmeal. You see, it's too aggressive. It requires too much insulin. It spikes the blood sugar. All right. Watermelon. All right. Look at this. Pineapple, mango, even bananas are almost in that medium glycemic index. Okay. Ice cream. Now, a lot of you are saying, well, how is it that ice cream has a lower glycemic index than watermelon? The reason why is because ice cream is full of fat. When fat is present in a food, it lessens the spike of the insulin. And you'll hear more about that later, but I know some of you are probably thinking that. Now let's look at some low GI foods. Let's look at some foods that are low GI foods. Most of them are vegetables. Look at this. Asparagus, broccoli, celery, cucumber, lettuce, peppers. Look how low it is. Spinach, tomatoes, chickpeas, cooked carrots. Okay. Okay. Low-fat yogurt, plain yogurt. Look how low it is. All right. This is the reason why some of you are able to eat different things and you're not. Now look at, you remember when we do the fruit fast, what is the required or the suggested fruit? Apples. It's low glycemic fruit. Why is it lower than something like pineapple or watermelon? Sugar content, but also it's rich in fiber. There are two things that help keep insulin from spiking: fat in foods as well as fiber. Now, if you were to take an apple and squeeze the juice out of it without the pulp, the glycemic index is going to shoot up. Okay? Why? Because you're removing the fiber. This is why gorillas and elephants and giraffes and things in the wild don't get diabetes, because they're eating fruits in their whole state. You see, this is why I'm against juicing, because when you're juicing, you're taking the fiber out. When it's just the juice, it's too aggressive on the pancreas. It's not good. Juicing is not ideal for people who are diabetic, pre-diabetic, or people who are trying to lose weight. You have to moderate the glycemic foods. And specifically, we want to be certain that we're eating low glycemic foods. That's why I'm having you all eat the things that you're eating, okay? The fourth thing that we want to do is avoid simple sugars at all times. What are a few examples? Alcohol, sweet alcohol, candy bars, sodas, pops, juice, cereals. This stuff breaks down too quickly and is very, 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 very aggressive on your pancreas. Any cereal you can think of is not ideal, because that bowl of cereal is all it's going to do is break down into glucose and spike your insulin. Number 5, the fifth thing that we want to do to naturally cure diabetes, to prevent diabetes, and to keep our weight in check is to always eat balanced meals. Now, the reason why we want to eat balanced meals is because when they're out of the 3 macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats, there are 2 out of the 3 that causes the body to produce insulin. Protein, believe it or not, and carbohydrates. The only one that does not are fats. Whenever fats are present with proteins and carbs, it causes a less aggressive response to the insulin, you see. Okay? When your foods are balanced, it helps you to not spike your insulin. So when the protein, carb, and the fat are present, what we're doing is we're manipulating energy levels. We're manipulating the body's not spiking insulin. See, that's why I ask a lot of you, where's your fat? You'll just have protein and carbs. That's why I'm asking. Because if you have a protein and a carb present but no fat, it's going to cause the blood sugar to spike more than it would if the fats were present. Am I making sense? Okay. Almost done. When fats are present in a balanced way, like you all been trained to eat, 80-20, it reduces the spike of insulin, which creates less insulin, more sustained energy, and a higher feeling of being full or satisfied. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, all right, when this right here, okay, to all of my emotional eaters, okay, when your insulin is spiked, when you're crashing, you're starving. You want to eat more. And all it's going to do is spike it again and more. That's why when you eat that bag of popcorn is low calories, but it's too aggressive on the insulin. That's why it's not ideal for people trying to lose weight, because it spikes your blood sugar. It spikes your insulin. When I'm eating balanced meals, my energy is sustained. I'm not hungry. I'm satisfied. I'm not sleepy. When you become sleepy after you eat, you're crashing. You see, you're here. You're from here and you're coming down. That's what being sleepy after you eat, getting that itis. That's all that is. You're crashing because you spiked your blood sugar. You either ate something that was too much, high on the glycemic level, or not balanced. Am I making sense? Okay. Almost done. All right, gang, that is it. Now, why do some vegans struggle with weight loss? Because this isn't plant-based. Black beans and farro, although those are approved for vegans exclusively or vegetarians, it's too much starch. It's too much starch. About 80% of this needs to be taken out, filled with vegetables. A bit of avocado, make it balanced, you see. Now look how this is balanced. Greens, onions, peppers, strawberries. The fats are cooked in the greens, and there's some walnuts, you see. That balances the meal. Strawberries are low on the glycemic index anyway. So this is an excellent non-protein or non-meat protein meal, you see. Balanced, okay? Now, gang, we need your recipes. Help us grow the 40-day turn-up recipe box. The recipe submission guidelines are as follows. 1, it must fall within the 40-day guidelines. 2, include the name of the dish, ingredients, step-by-step instructions. Remember, people are coming after you, and they want to know how to do and how to prepare the meals that you have prepared. Include the calorie count per serving, name of the submitter, picture of the dish if available. Submit your recipes to your leader for review by approval by 10/13. Leaders, turn in all approved recipes to D.D. Watkins, Delana Watkins. Okay, gang? All right, gang, we're wrapping up, but I just want to remind you, we talked on last week about the seed that you will give. I asked each of you for a seed for those of you who graduate. I asked you for $100 seed, and I gave you all of the math in terms of why I was asking it. It's the only way that this process can continue. It's the only way. If there are 100 graduates and each person gives a $100 seed to this ministry, that's $10,000. $5,000 goes to administration. That means in order for us to have this session, it costs $5,000 to do that. From people, things that we needed access to, materials, so on and so forth, just to make it happen. A $1,000 tithe, that's 10% of the $10,000, will come back to Salem Bible Church. Here in Atlanta, we're using the building for the pre-orientation, for the expo, for all of the Saturday classes. So Salem Bible Church is deserving of the tithe of whatever comes in. $1,500 is what the cost of the graduation is. The graduation that you all are going to come to. And we feed you and we give awards, and we've got to pay for the people to cook it, to prepare it, to be certain that it's right. That's how much that costs. And the balance, the $3,500, is what I'm considering reinvestment. These are dollars that go back into the organization to help us to update our back end of our websites, of our marketing materials, graphic design work, so we can be certain to offer this class another year, another session. This session has been well worth $100. And the reason why I told you last week, that gives you 3 weeks to prepare for that $100 seed that I'm asking each of you for when you graduate. We're asking that you bring those seeds to you on graduation, or that you give it to us the day of graduation for those of you who are living in different cities and states. And the reason why we're telling you now, that'll give you plenty of time to prepare for that. We'll get you more information in the future so we can tell you the various different ways for you to give your $100 seed, if it's through a check, a credit card, online, whatever's most convenient. We'll be certain that we'll give you all of the information. But I'm asking, please, for those of you that we bring you and you take you to the finish line, that you sow a $100 seed or more into this organization so we can have what we need to continue on and do more work. Love each of you. God bless you. And I can't wait to see and hear about your great results. Blessings and peace.